for a nap. He writes that The Athletic covers LSU. It's been a grind the last couple of months, Brody. How good does it feel to have a coaching search now in the rearview mirror?
It feels fantastic, my friend. Yeah, it's been a wild ride because, as you know, it's never even just the coaching search itself. It's been the year of drama, 2 years of drama at LSU, the downfall of Ed Ogeron, which has been chaotic in its own right, and then a 6-week coaching search with a pretty unprecedented hire. So there's truly just never a dull moment here. So I'm looking forward to getting past signing day.
You know, Brody, one of the things that we've been talking about this, I mean, not the way that it's been talked about in Louisiana. And I'm not saying that I predicted that Brian Kelly was going to be the head coach, but back on, I don't know, the week that Ole Miss and LSU were playing, I was having a conversation with some folks, and I said, Brian Kelly's the guy that Scott Woodward should hire. And people didn't really seem to be that on board with it, but I thought it made a lot of sense for a lot of different reasons. Now that it has happened, do you think this hire makes sense?
Yeah, it's such a good question. I think, I don't think it was necessarily like choice number one. And there are going to be some real questions that are valid, right? Like, he has never coached further south than Cincinnati. Does he fit? He's not exactly a guy who lives and breathes recruiting, which, as you know, you kind of need to some extent in the SEC world, especially at an LSU. How is he going to do in that chaotic world going toe-to-toe with, like, Kirby Smart for recruits and things like that? Those are valid questions. I think in other ways you could really – first off, yeah, he's one of The Athletic, we did our – Bruce and Stu both did their top 25 coaches in the country this year, and they both had him number 3. Like, at the end of the day, sometimes it's just simple. He might be the third best coach in the country. Of course, it's a good fit. But I think there's an argument to be made that he is exactly what LSU needs, even if he's not exactly what a lot of the fans wanted, right? A lot of the fans wanted Lane Kiffin. A lot of the fans wanted Lincoln Riley. They wanted that guru, which, of course, nothing wrong with that either. I think they'd be happy with that. But yeah. I do think – it's a program that has won 3 national titles with its last 3 coaches. And quite frankly, the last 2 weren't exactly tacticians who had everything in order. It's been 17 years of kind of good football with flawed head coaches. And I think, the closer I've covered this program, the more I kind of do believe if they just get a real program builder in there, a guy who really just at his core knows how to run a program, I think they still haven't seen the heights because Saban built it, but then he was gone. He was the last real program builder they had. So I say all that to say, and I apologize for the long-winded answer, I think Brian Kelly is that. Do I know if he's a perfect fit in the South? No, but he is the definition of a program builder for 30 years now. So he's a winner. He knows how to, fix problems when they arise. He knows how to build a culture, all those things. So I do think he could be exactly what LSU needs, even if he's not exactly what they want.
All right, different athletics directors, different time periods, different sports. Is this the equivalent of LSU hiring Paul Mainieri in baseball? And not just because they both were at Notre Dame prior.
Cool. I'm trying to think of a great comp because the honest truth is there is no sports comp that I can think of in college, at least, of somebody this at the top of their profession. He's to leave for another school. Sometimes they'll get fired and end up somewhere else, but he's the winningest coach to ever start at a different school. It's literally never happened before, So Mainieri, as much as I do love some of those similarities, and they don't even seem that different of guys, it's like Mainieri was kind of, because how it is. Notre Dame in baseball is not exactly, like a institution. So he was almost more the rising star in some ways, even though he wasn't necessarily young. Kelly is almost like, it's bigger than even Roy. I'm saying Brian Kelly is the best coach in the world, but in terms of context, it's bigger than even Roy Williams going Kansas to UNC. There really isn't much like it. So I think it is even bigger than Mainieri. And again, that's not me saying it's going to have the results of, Roy Williams or anything like that, but just the scale of coach in the moment, there is no precedent.
There's the perspective of LSU fans and Brian Kelly to LSU as it pertains to the LSU community. But then there's also the perspective of other programs in the SEC looking at this and reacting to it. We were talking about it yesterday, and I don't know if it was Brian or if it was Borky. One of the two of them said, this isn't a guy that scares you if you're Mississippi State or Ole Miss. Because LSU's always good. And then I think it was Borky that said Lane Kiffin is the guy that if he goes to LSU, that scares you. Does that make any sense?
Oh, it makes a ton of sense. Yeah. There's not exactly an element of Brian Kelly yet. I think it's completely true. He's not like scaring you because he's not bringing some brilliant scheme, and he's not even like, say, even like a Napier going to Florida where it's like, oh, he's going to shake up recruiting in the SEC. You know, there's no that, but it's just like he knows how to run a program. So I guess the question, and I don't know the answer to it, it's just is LSU finally having a grown-up in the room, quite frankly? Is that the scary thing? You know, it's like LSU, I kind of, again, I'm not from here. I've only been down here 4 years. I kind of still view LSU in a lot of weird ways as a sleeping giant because they've actually still never had a cohesive person running it for more than 4 years, you know? So I do just wonder if that's the scary part. But to your point, no, yeah, he is not a guy who lives and breathes recruiting. You know, that is just not his life. So he's not really scaring you there. And a lot of it's going to depend on hires and all that stuff. But I get it. I really do. You know, I think Kiffin, you know, is a great example. Oh, man, him with LSU athletes and that offense, I would love to see that. It'd be so fun. But that's not how Scott Woodward thinks, because Scott Woodward wants no drama. That's something I was told repeatedly through the process. And he wants a guy who just proven he can take a team to the top. So I think the question is, okay, and I think Andy Staples, my colleague, put it well, that Kelly probably got Notre Dame to its ceiling. You know, remember, for 18 years, Notre Dame was pretty average. And he got them to a perennial 10-11 win team that makes the playoff, you know. So he got them to their ceiling. The greatest question here, and I don't know the answer, is does Kelly now with more talent prove he's a Saban or Swinney? Or does this now prove that his limitations were always there? That is the ultimate question. We just don't know yet.
Yeah, it certainly is going to be fascinating to watch that play out. Let's go back to before it was Brian Kelly. There are a lot of people, Brody, on that beat, in and around the program, pretty connected, that thought it was going to be Lincoln Riley. I've had people tell me that there was indeed an offer there that was in the $12 million range. In terms of the backstory with the Lincoln Riley thing, what can you tell us?
Yeah, you know, it's one of those things that I think, you know, how this goes. Whenever there's a hire, everyone at LSU was going to sit here and tell you they were never going for Lincoln Riley. But, yeah, I mean, I have heard all those. We reported some of those things, too, that I do believe there was a pursuit. I do believe there was a plane that went out Sunday to go meet him. You know, I even think I heard that the graphics were made. You know, there was a strong push, and I think the tough thing to – and again, Scott Woodward does keep the search so close to the vest that I don't even know if we'll ever really know all the details, and clearly USC kept it close to the vest too. The thing I'll always want to know is, was Riley sincerely debating between USC and LSU and just chose USC, or was it always playing LSU? I think that's the part that is going to wrestle with a lot of people's egos this year. But yeah, there was a reality to the pursuit, and shoot, Scott Woodward even in a kind of reporter scrum today after the press conference kind of acknowledged in an answer that, hey, he basically said, you know, you have to have a process with these searches, and sometimes it's not your first guy, but your second, third, or fourth are still elite coaches. And he brought up the example of Pete Carroll, you know, being the sixth or seventh guy at USC. And again, I'm bringing that up to say that might be an indication he's kind of acknowledging that, like, there were other pursuits.
Yeah, that certainly is a reasonable way to look at it. When do you feel like we get a legitimate answer to your question of does he become a more engaged, an elite recruiter? Or do we already know the answer to that?
I think a lot of it in some ways will really just depend on his staff, which is kind of like a cop-out answer. But I think you'll learn something these next 3 weeks just because it is such a loaded Louisiana year. And it looked like LSU was going to have like a top 2 or 3 class in the country, which is how it was looking before the season. And obviously things happen, guys loosen up, all that.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of these guys, though, LSU's still in the mix, right? So I think we're really going to learn, okay, does he keep those Louisiana commits they already have and those 5 stars, Will Campbell and Walker Howard? Does he turn on, you know, does he get Jacoby Matthews to come back to LSU or the Kendrick Laws? You know, can he get those guys back? I think that's going to tell us a lot. But in the grand scheme, yeah, I think it's really something you're probably going to get a good sense of, honestly, in the 2023 class or the 24 class, where it's, okay, you see him have a full year and all those things. And I think one thing that's going to help is the quote general manager, Austin Thomas, who was kind of like that roster management guru that Scott Woodward brought on a year ago. he's still there to kind of be that. I think he's going to be a key liaison. They're going to keep I think they're going to keep at least one or two of those kind of Louisiana Tide staffers on the coaching staff. So that'll help, but I think we'll find out next year kind of what he's like as a Louisiana recruiter.
You know, Ross Dellinger used to be on that beat. He would probably suggest that you kick your feet up and sit back and have a cocktail, that you've earned it at this point.
Yes, I just filed my story literally 3 minutes before I hopped on with you, and then I'm driving home, and I am going to take the night off.